Boulevard northbound to eastbound 8094 is closed for construction now until Saturday evening. Inbound Kennedy, traffic slow Harlem to Montrose and Ohio to the Burns Circle. It's 25 minutes O'Hare to downtown, 13 from Montrose, 8 in the Express. Outbound 21 minutes to the airport. Inbound Eisenhower, stop and go Manheim to Des Plaines Avenue, 35 minutes, 390 to downtown. Outbound 29. Stevenson, 33 minutes, 355 to the drive. Ryan is 20 minutes, 95 to downtown. I-57 and the Bishop Ford Freeway are looking good right now. Westbound Tri-State, a bit heavy from the Reagan Tollway to the Ike. That's traffic. I'm Jim Telemonte on AM 560 The Answer.
Chicago's Morning Answer continues next in our AM 560 Weather Center. A lakeshore flood advisory is up until 10 a.m. Mostly cloudy today, highs in the upper 60s. 62 at O'Hare. Next news coming up at 8. Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan and Amy continues next on AM 560, The Answer.
This hourly segment is brought to you by Unlock Your Wealth with host Raj Shah. Sunday mornings at 7 on AM 560, The Answer.
If you're looking for the latest news, insight into what it means, and the sharpest opinion, there's only one station in Chicago where you can turn, and it's this one. We're AM 560, The Answer.
Yeah, welcome back to Chicago's Morning Answer. Amy Jacobson here, Scott Shellady.
Oh.
I got it right.
That's
in
cute.
for Dan Proft, and you're going to be doing Dan Proft's network
Long day
show.
for me today, yeah.
7 hours of radio, huh?
That's a huge check from these guys, too. It's
Oh,
awesome.
it's going to be. I don't know what you're going to do with all the
I
money.
need a wheelbarrow to take all the money out of here.
Yes, well, we have this thing called an election, folks, in 55 days from now. And Kamala Harris, you know, the key state is, of course, the swing states, Michigan, which Joe Biden's going to visit
Isn't
today.
It Kamala Harris?
Yes, it's Kamala Harris.
Kamala.
Was in Wisconsin on Monday on Labor Day, trying to, you know, get some support. Met with Jake Blake's family.
I mean, they're an incredible family, and what they've endured, and they just do it with such dignity and grace. And, you know, they're carrying the weight of a lot of voices on their shoulders.
An incredible family. Then she went on because she was on the phone with Jacob Blake, and she told him that she was proud of him. And that's after he, you know, we heard his voice for the first time, and he, you know, did a little clip from his hospital bed.
I just want to say, man, to all the young cats out there, and even the older ones, older than me, it's a lot more life to live out here, man. Your life, and not only just your life, your legs, something that you need to move around and move forward in life, can be taken from you like this, man. And I promise you, the type of shit that you will go through, staples, I got staples in my back, staples in my damn stomach. You do not want to have to deal with this shit, man. 24 hours, every 24 hours, it's pain, it's nothing but pain. It hurts to breathe, it hurts to sleep, it hurts to move from side to side, it hurts to eat. Please, I'm telling you, change our lives out there. We can stick together, make some money, make everything easier for our people out here, man, because there's so much time that has been wasted.
Make some money? What do you think he meant by that?
I don't know.
Scott, the cow guy.
It's so, there's so many ways you could go with this, and none of them end well. So it's almost like untouchable because it's boggles. You know, Kamala Harris, the way she handled herself over the Kavanaugh hearings is where I fell, where she fell out of graces with me, because I thought what she did to that family was just an absolute abomination. And so to see what she did to Judge Kavanaugh, and then have the same these words for this Blake individual, to me it's just unconscionable.
And don't forget, after the George Floyd riots, you know, that took place not only in Minneapolis but pretty much in every big city, she said that we need to keep up the protests, and she actually encouraged people to donate money to help protesters / looters, rioters get out on bail.
Yeah, I mean, look, we all can get better, right? The country always can get better. Every firm can get better. Every person can always get better. There's always room for improvement. But to say the things that she has said that are so inflammatory on both sides,
you can't walk it back.
I mean, no, you can't. What she did to Kavanaugh's family, and what she said, and then to totally change directions and pretend like it never happened, and then say what she said about this Blake family. I can't. There must be no mirrors in her house because she clearly can't be looking at one to think about herself. I mean,
let's begin there with Brian Morgenstern, Special Assistant to the President, Deputy Press Secretary, and Deputy Director of Communications for President Trump. Good morning, Brian, and welcome back to the show.
Hey, good morning. Thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
Yeah, so with all this civil unrest, how is it helping President Trump in his campaign?
Well, the president stands for law and order and peace in the streets, and it's surprising that one of our two main presidential candidates actually needs to come out and say that. But it seems like that's where we've landed here. The other party, the Democratic Party, seems to be in favor of chaos and riots, and in the instance you were just discussing, supporting somebody who apparently had apparently had committed some kind of sexual assault, and then the Attorney General stated there may have been a weapon involved in the incident. Of course, we can let the facts play out, but then Kamala Harris jumping to the conclusion that this person was deserving of praise, I think is, as you pointed out, Scott, the contrast of destroying such a wonderful family of Judge Kavanaugh and then coming out and speaking highly of this family, where his father also was quoted as saying some outrageous anti-Semitic remarks.
On Facebook?
It really sort of flipping common sense on its head. So President Trump is continuing to travel the country, continuing to offer federal resources to places that need it in the form of law enforcement resources, investigators, National Guard where necessary, because people need to be able to live their lives, go to church, go to work, not be in fear of their businesses being burned down, and people being physically hurt in many instances. So the president's going to speak up for law and order and safety in the streets, and that message is resonating. It's just unfortunate that it has to be a point of contrast with his political opponents. It's something that everyone should be okay with, everyone should be on board with. But regardless, the president is going to continue to hammer that message home and make sure that the American people know he is here to do what it takes to restore public safety.
You're exactly right, and unfortunately, like you said, common sense ultimately will have to rule the day. But nobody, for some reason on the left, understands that. Look, for all these things that we need to get better at, for all these reforms that we need to enact, and for all of this justice that needs to be meted out, you can't do any of it unless you have law and order. Law and order is the base of all of that happening. If you don't have law and order, nothing gets done. And I don't understand why that's such a hard ask, number one. And number two, you're exactly right, Brian. It doesn't even hit the news. It barely hit the press that when President Trump went to Kenosha, all the money that he spent and resources that he gave them was incredible. And so you don't hear about that part of the law and order. And number two is we can't get anything done in this country without law and order as the basic premise.
Yeah, Scott, that's a great point. So two things on that. Number one, some of the support that the president offered to Kenosha, for example, is to support small businesses. Remember, small businesses support half the workforce in our country, and that's why it's so important that the Congress, work with us on a new relief package, because one of the important things, in addition to getting kids back in school, one of the other really important components is an expansion of the Paycheck Protection Program to make sure that to the extent businesses are still limited in their ability to operate, we want those employees to remain connected to their jobs. It's important that we limit the disruption caused by this pandemic by supporting small businesses. The other point you made, Scott, that I really want to underscore is you cannot have prosperity without security. This is something that, I grew up in the New York area. So when Rudy Giuliani became the mayor of New York, it was really a profound change. And one of the reasons that area really had sort of a renaissance in terms of jobs, in terms of prosperity, not just for the well-heeled, but really for all classes of workers, and especially the hospitality industry, which of course are not, we're not talking about white collar, we're not talking about bankers, we're talking about everyday Americans. When you have security in the streets, when you have a safe city, a safe neighborhood, people are able to prosper. They earn higher wages. They have more job opportunities. You cannot have prosperity without security. So that your point is exactly right, and that's something that President Trump understands all too well.
So presidential candidate, Vice President Joe Biden was in he was in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania yesterday. He's heading to Michigan today, but his campaign stops quite different than President Trump's. Yesterday, he was in the backyard with two men. They're about 12 feet apart. And he still wore that diaper on his face, that mask, and that just looks so weak. When he's applying to be, the leader of the most powerful country in the world, and he's wearing a mask. I don't see any other world leaders.
I think they were playing badminton.
Were they playing badminton?
Yeah, right.
But he wasn't supposed to go out and campaign until after Labor Day. So what does that say about
Joe Biden's turning with a shuttlecock?
If he's getting desperate?
Well, look, I mean, you're not going to see a stronger contrast, okay? And there's common sense that the president, again, I come back to common sense that the president is advocating for. And he said in his remarks leading into Labor Day weekend, it's a weekend when people like to celebrate, they like to gather, they like to get together with their families and their friends. This Labor Day, maybe wear your mask if you can't socially distance. And that's the point. If you're in a confined space, if you are really close together, definitely wear your mask. We want to prevent the spread of the virus. If you're outside and you're more than 6 feet away from anybody and you're wearing a mask, that's just virtue signaling. That is just putting on a show. That is security theater, And so but you're not going to see a stronger contrast. The president's rally yesterday with thousands of people, and I saw a media report that he gathered with thousands of people and nobody was wearing masks.
Yeah,
well,
Jim
in the
Acosta
very
was
picture,
frothing at the mouth.
In one of the pictures I saw, it said no masks, and every person in the picture was wearing a mask. So, I mean, look, the president is advocating for safety combined with common sense, whereas the other side seems to be just, putting on a show, but that doesn't really help anybody. So what the president wants to do is everybody get back to living their lives, running their businesses, going to church, going to school, but be safe. Wear your mask if you can't distance. Use common sense. Wash your hands. So, we can reopen our economy with common sense, safe mitigation measures. We don't have to keep everything locked down because the consequences of lockdown are really drastic. They're really bad, and we know what they are. So that's why the president is advocating for his path of safely reopening.
Yeah, and I have to tell you, I'm a single issue voter right now. We need schools to reopen for in-person learning. And yesterday we started CPS, 355,000 students. I don't know how many showed up. We'll find out later this week. But this is no way to live, and we have 178 more days of this.
Yeah, and Amy, that's a great point, and something that the coronavirus task force doctors have really been have been making very clear to the public that the consequences of having schools closed are quite drastic in terms of the learning deficits that it creates, in terms of the lack of physical activity for students, in terms of unidentified cases of abuse, lack of socialization, mental development. There are really drastic consequences for keeping kids out of school, whereas the risks posed by the coronavirus to students are actually quite low. We know that the risks of keeping them home from school are quite high. It's just that we have to be sure that we protect high-risk individuals if there are teachers who are of advanced age, or they have comorbidities, or there are staff members or family members at home, and we need to keep the students maybe away from those people if they're going to go to school and be around other students and then come home and be around vulnerable populations. We have to protect the vulnerable populations. So nobody's saying that we don't have to be careful. What we are saying is that the risks of keeping students home from school are drastic, whereas the risk of sending a student to school, the risks of the coronavirus are relatively quite low. So it is really important to get kids back in school. We want to do that. We want to do that in a safe way. And certainly we want the parents to have the option. I think that's a really important point, that the parents should have the option of sending their kids back to school.
It's called democracy. Yeah. That's called democracy.
Exactly.
Put the decision back in the people's hands.
We'll have to leave it there for today. Brian Morgenstern, Special Assistant to the President, Deputy Press Secretary, and Deputy Director of Communications. Thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Brian.
Thanks, Amy.